First up, Paul Hutchins, 3D Journeys. Paul, you can unmute yourself. We give Paul special privilege.
Oh, yes, I can. Yes,
there we go.
Earlier. Yeah, thank you.
And you kind of lead us into this.
Yeah, sure. This is a part two follow-up to last week's Art Deco Gems, and is a former royal palace going back to Henry VIII's time in southeast London called Eltham Palace. The Art Deco part is often used in films, TV shows, and movies where a 1930s ambience is needed. For example, the Poirot crime thrillers are often filmed there, or were often filmed there. We saw in a previous video short how the architectural style known as Art Deco developed from the 1925 Paris Exhibition of Decorative Arts. The movement spread across Europe and America, and many well-known buildings were built in this style. The grand nature of the interior furnishings were typical. In Britain, many Art Deco buildings were made and served a variety of functions, from domestic houses to cinemas, transport hubs, factories, hotels, and department stores. All the buildings we have seen so far were newly constructed from scratch, but there was an interesting historical Art Deco gem in southeast London which was converted from an existing building. Eltham Palace is a former medieval royal palace which was built for King Edward IV 500 years ago. King Henry VIII stayed there as a child. It has a large garden and moat. The palace has a great hall with a hammer beam roof. Over the centuries it fell out of favour as a palace and was left to decline. In the 1930s, the millionaire industrialist Sir Stephen Courtauld and his wife Lady Virginia bought Eltham Palace and transformed it into a lavish home. They were an eccentric couple, and Lady Virginia kept a pet Madagascar lemur called Ma Yong, or Yongi for short. Yongi even had its own centrally heated bedroom. The entrance hall is a mix of Art Deco and Swedish style and leads into a panelling dining room made of geometric shapes. The living rooms and bedrooms are equally lavish. Virginia's golden bathroom, which would surely not be out of place in Trump Tower, is made of golden mosaics of the goddess Psyche, who was the Greek and Roman goddess of the soul. The palace is now owned by English Heritage and is often used as a location for film or TV when an Art Deco interior is needed. And that's all for now.
Now, kids, it's time for the Anaglyph Jukebox. Hey, Joe, what do you have for us this week? Hey, by the way, what are we talking about? Lizard people? This is a sculpture of my great grandfather. So don't talk about lizard people. Ow, this guy's got sharp teeth, man. Ouch. Okay, Joseph.
Well, Johnny, very quickly. This is a little known portion of the late '60s that some people may have missed, but my magic camera captured it. It combines a couple of my passions. These images were all generated in Midjourney, and you will look for. Here's the things to look for, kids. Look for patron saint of 3D, Brian May, as a French poodle. Look for Jimi Hendrix, John Lennon, Arlo Guthrie, Janis Joplin, and more as interpreted or as they would have appeared at the alternate festival that Johnny Laser named earlier in rehearsal called Woofstock.
color of time. Who cares what games we choose? Little to win, but nothing to lose. In the sense of compliments, meaningless bounds. Turn on, tune in, turn your eyes around. Look what you saw, look what you saw. Yeah, yeah. Look what you saw, look what you saw. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tutor by the cockeyed world in two. Throw your pride to one side, it's the least you can do. Beatniks and politics, nothing is new. A yardstick for lunatics, one point of view. Who cares what games we choose? Little to win, but nothing to lose. Good sense, innocence, cripple mankind. Dead kings and many things I can define. Occasions by sweatings, blood to your mind. Incense and peppermints, the color of time. Who cares what games we choose? Little to win, but nothing to lose. Incense, peppermints, incense, peppermints. Sha-la-la, sha-la-la, sha-la-la,
strabismussolutions.com. Strabismus, and you good luck on spelling that. But Google will do it for you. That both documents her journey and offers valuable advice. Now it's my pleasure, and it's going to be yours too, to introduce Melissa Daniels.
All right. Well, I was born with strabismus, and you're right. You said it correctly twice, so you're doing amazing. So I was born with my eye turned really far in, and I had multiple surgeries as a baby to try to correct that, but my brain never developed the ability to use my eyes together to see with stereo vision. And so I didn't realize this. My eyes looked pretty good after the surgeries, kind of like Stereo Sue. And so we just kind of thought like, oh yeah, this is as good as it gets. And we just had no idea like how much not having both eyes working together affects depth perception and all the things. And so fast forward till I was about 30 years old, 32, and it got to the point where I couldn't really drive at night anymore. It was really functionally a major problem to not be able to have that depth perception. My eye was really far out by this point. And I had, I don't know, this isn't the medical community, right? So you guys don't care, but it was out here. I can show a picture if you want. But
Oh, Melissa, one thing
I
I
couldn't
have a
drive at
request.
night.
Oh, just one thing I say. Your I guess Zoom Italy must have this problem too, but you talk with your hands just like I do. But what's happening is the bandwidth as you're moving, you kind of got to stay a little bit more steady because you're breaking up a little bit. And typically you're perfect there. But if you're a hand user, don't worry about it. Like I say, Zoom Italy must be like they'll suck half the bandwidth in the world up, But so now continue, please.
Okay, I will try to not use my hands, but it might be just an uphill battle, but I will try. Anyway, so my eye was super far out and I didn't really notice the eye turn too much, but I couldn't drive. And it was like becoming a major problem because I have 4 kids and I couldn't drive at night because I couldn't see. My depth perception was just really poor. And I would see sometimes double vision and see like cars in the wrong lane. Like it was just really dangerous. And so I ended up finding vision therapy and working through vision therapy for several years. I also had a surgery to help align my eyes. And between the two things, surgery and vision therapy, I got to the point where I can use my eyes together now. And if, as you watch this, you will see that sometimes my eye goes up or in, like they're not perfect, but I have much better depth perception now. And so it's just because I had such a hard time finding any resources. When I first started, I decided to start a website, especially for people who use vision therapy and surgery together. Those two worlds, the vision therapy world and the strabismus surgery world, those two professionals, they sometimes are at odds with one another. And so I kind of became a voice in the middle to kind of just help people who have strabismus to figure out how to get their eyes working together, how to gain that depth perception, how, that whole process. So that became my passion. That's how the website started, and it's grown from there. Some of it is me playing with different exercises, trying to figure out how to get my depth perception to improve further. A lot of it's just trying out new programs with all the technology. There's so much fun stuff, 3D movies and the VR, all the things. So I've had a lot of fun trying to figure out how to get my brain to see in 3D when it never did, for 32 years.
Do you have to be conscious of the eye that moves? In other words, are you conscious of that eye? I mean,
I'm not really, like, on like a really bad day when I'm super tired, sometimes it feels like my eye is like looking straight up, but it's not, but it feels that way. So sometimes I can feel it. I don't have great eye control or awareness of like where my eyes are, but I can tell when they're working together because everything looks different. I can see like the space, I can see the depth. I just feel everything looks a little less murky and more solid. So it's not perfect all the time, but I don't really have to put an effort in anymore. Like that was more like maybe a couple of years ago. I had to really like think consciously about using both eyes together.
It's just, in other words, that's very interesting. When things look different, right? Now, when that occurs, are you able to move into the difference? In other words, okay, do you consciously think a moment to get the depth back, or?
Right. Yes. Sometimes it's tiring, right? My brain wants to go back to how it used the eyes for 30 years. So every now and then when I'm like really tired or sick, I'll kind of float back into that old way. And so then, yeah, I have some tricks that I use to kind of help bring my eyes back together, get that depth back. It's a lot with peripheral vision, actually, is like a huge key for me. Engaging like peripheral cues, that helps kind of bring that alignment back and really like give me that depth again, give me that like clarity. It's almost like everything's like outlined in a marker or something. Like it's just so much more clear, and you just solid it, that you know exactly where things are. It's pretty cool.
Now, when you had surgery, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so just what do you think the degree that the surgery helped as opposed to the things you did afterwards? Is there a?
So I did vision therapy for about 2 years before deciding to do the surgery. And I got to the point in vision therapy where I could actually force my eyes to be straight and I could get some stereo. So I could look at like a stereo pair, not a stereo pair, just like a tranaglyph or vectogram. And I could see some depth, but I couldn't hold it. It was a lot of strain for me to hold my eyes straight. And so when I got the surgery, it basically made it so I didn't have to think about holding my eyes straight as much. I could just focus on using my eyes together. And I don't know if that makes sense, but so it definitely helped with like the strain of the forcing my eyes together, but it didn't necessarily like help my brain use the eyes together. That was all the vision therapy part. The surgery did, I mean, it changed like my peripheral a little bit for sure, but it just made it so that I didn't have to have like this like forced, like, okay, like trying really hard. I could just do it with like a relaxed gaze.
Now, just early on, I just wanted to get into a little of that, and then we'll go on to your great presentations, that's for sure. So, yeah, I mean, it was obvious you had the problem because as a baby, you could see it, right? Your parents could see that. Now I know you showed some charts before. So how engaged did your mother get now at this point, or your parents? I'm sorry, with solving that problem? Yeah.
So my mom was amazing. My mom's actually on the call right now, which is pretty fun. She's on here with us, but they found me the best eye surgeon, the best ophthalmologist ever, and basically followed his direction. So that required multiple surgeries when I was a little baby. And unfortunately, none of those resulted in like me developing stereo vision, but aesthetically, like my eyes looked a lot better. And, it improved peripheral vision, right? If your eyes are pointing straight in, that really cuts off what you can see peripherally. So because my eyes were more straight and even a little out, that made it so that even though, I was maybe shutting off central vision to my weak eye, my lazy eye, I could still get a lot better depth even using like peripheral cues. And so it definitely improved, but I never did develop like that stereo vision with both eyes as a child. So yeah, I did like patching, and I wore all kinds of glasses, and we did all the things. So my parents were super involved, but they'd never even heard of vision therapy. It wasn't a thing where we lived. It just didn't really exist back then. And so it wasn't even an option. So they did everything that they knew at that time. And then, it wasn't until I was an adult. I mean, I found my vision therapy office 2 weeks after they opened, and they're the only one within 4 hours of where I live. And so it's just not like very common. And so most people don't even know that it exists or it's an option, and it is really difficult. So a lot of times, doctors, the surgeons, they'll kind of say like, it's not a good idea. It doesn't work because it's really hard and really expensive. It takes a ton of work. And so not a lot of people know about it.
You mentioned driving. So as you were a teenager, now you wanted to drive. You get your car.
Yeah.
And that's before you actually got your stereo vision back. Now, how did that feel?
It felt normal to me. I'm sure it was a little bit scary for my mom. But like I grew up in LA.
Got your point.
So
I
did not spend a lot of time on the freeway. When we would go on the freeway, I would usually have like somebody else drive. And I didn't realize that I had like it could be related to my vision. I really had in my mind that my eyes were better at that point. I had no idea that I was only using one eye. But like I can look back and see like, oh, that's super interesting. Like in 10th grade, I was taking like AP European history, and I couldn't keep up with any of the reading assignments. And I was really frustrated with it. And we went to an eye doctor, and I think it was actually a vision therapy office, which is just hilarious to me. Just very ironic. And they did this test and realized I was reading at a 6th grade reading level as a sophomore in high school. And so, it was really hard for me. Like I played the piano and I couldn't read sheet music very well. I had to memorize everything. I'd memorize it, and then I would watch my hands as I played. I couldn't sight read just because, again, it was like my eyes just couldn't quite work together. So there's little things like that I didn't recognize were related to my vision. I did get in a terrible car accident when I was 19. And I definitely think it was related to my depth perception. There was a car going really slow on the freeway. And I was dumb. I was 19. I looked down at my phone. I was trying to dial a phone number because I didn't know where I was going. And I looked up, and I was right next to this car. And all of a sudden I was like on top of it. And they were only going like 45 in an 80. And so that's part of it. But because my eyes couldn't, measure that depth quickly, it just, I totally, rolled my car.
Before you go any further, you settled an insurance claim, right? Before we have this going out there. It's all good now, right?
Yeah, I'm all good. No, nobody died. I swerved around them. I rolled my car. I didn't even get hurt. Nobody got hurt. The cars got really hurt. But definitely I look back on that and think, I wonder how that would have been different if I had my eyes working together, if I had some stereo, because I only looked down for a fraction of a second, but because of the difference in speed, and my brain just couldn't calculate those differences quickly. So,
one last question before we go on.
It's interesting.
Do you have a new car? Do you have like a brand new car, like a within like the next 3 or 4 years or less? Because now they do a lot of stuff. The cars have all these little warning at 2 closures. That's what I was going to ask, if any of those extra things are factoring in on how you can. But if you don't have a newer car.
No, and now it's just like, again, like before, a big problem was lights at night. Like the lights would just be so bright, and just I couldn't not look at like headlights, and then I didn't know where to look. And then sometimes I would see 2 cars coming towards me instead of one. And one of them would look like it was in my lane. So I'd like swerve, but then there wasn't actually a car to swerve around. So like things were happening like that, where my eyes were playing tricks on me, and things were not solid. Things were just kind of, it's like this like murky, like, yeah, it's somewhere over there. I can see it. But at night, I don't have all my monocular cues, right? Like when you don't develop 3D vision, your brain comes up with a workaround. So my brain would use size and perspective and shadows and, what's in front. That's how I would determine depth. And so I still had all of that, and that works really well. But when it's dark outside, I lose so much of that. So I can no longer look at shadows. I can no longer look at the size of fence posts to kind of judge distances. I don't even know I'm doing it right. It's automatic, but at night I would lose all of those things. And so at daytime, it's fine. Driving was not a big deal, even with only using, the one eye, because I was used to it. But at night, when I lost all of that, that's when it became a problem.
That was all great. Now we'll go past the surgery. Now you're in your 30s. Now you could continue from there. That was great information. Thank you. You could pick it up.
Oh no, you're so. So after, you want to hear more about the surgery? Like, I had the surgery. You mean as a child or as an adult?
As an adult, because now you
Okay.
got that, and you've started to accommodate. I had just on a brief note, I had a partner in a business. He didn't have laser eye. He just couldn't see out of one eye. He actually had damage to the fovea, so he could see. He had some peripheral vision. But my point is, his accommodation. It's very interesting to be around someone like that. Who, by the way, I did 3D stuff with him and everything because he was a brilliant guy. But here's the point: if he was holding a wire, okay, he could cut it to a nanometer. If I held it, he couldn't find it. It was like, it was amazing how the brain can accommodate.
Mm-hmm.
And unknowingly, right? A lot of things you're doing are just being done by the brain going, okay, how are we going to deal with this? Boom, boom, gets a workaround and it's done. Incredible. And I guess that's what can lead to problems, because people don't realize they even have a difficulty. Because the brain's been kind of.
I had, the brain just helps, right? The brain's like, oh, that's fine. We can figure out another way to do it. And which is so amazing, right? Like, it's so fantastic and I'm so glad, but also it's like, oh, but there's so much I'm missing, right? Like there's like a whole world out there that I am not part of, that I can't even see, that's, different than what everyone else is seeing. So that was interesting to kind of go through that process of going from like my 2D world to a 3D world. Just very interesting. It happened over time, but super fascinating. So after surgery, it was interesting because my eye actually was turned slightly in after that point. And so that's esotropia. So instead of being outwards, it was a little bit inwards. And I started being able to get some really, like when I would hold something real close to my face, I was just getting like this amazing depth. Or like when I would be picking raspberries in my garden, and all of a sudden the branches would just be like jumping out at me, and everything was just like, it was just, 4K, HD, 3D, whatever you want to call it. And I was just like, whoa. And so that's when things really started to take off, was after surgery. I started using virtual reality and doing some different like vision programs through virtual reality that really helped get my brain using the eyes together. And things just started falling into place. It was pretty amazing.
Susan Berry mentioned that too. One of the most amazing things that she saw when she had the stereo was a tree. What a tree looked like. And you brought it up too. Amazing, right?
Trees are so cool. Like, it's, you think of a painting of a tree and you're like, that's a beautiful tree. But the difference between a painting of a tree and a real life tree, it's just like, oh, it's like a globe and it's coming to me, which was something I'd never experienced before. And seeing the space between the branches and the space between the leaves, like I still get stuck staring at trees all the time. I just think they're so fascinating.
Amazing. Yeah. Oh, incredible. And to think about it, it's your brain doing that, right? Your brain's going, this is amazing. Right?
Right.
Your brain is getting those cues and going, wow, we didn't realize this existed. It's amazing. It's amazing. When you say you, but it's actually the jelly, like the 3 pounds of jelly going, look at this. Amazing. Truly amazing.
Wait a second. There's more here than I thought. That's amazing.
I guess that begins a domino. Does that not begin a domino effect in your brain? Because now once it realizes that, I guess everything is kind of tainted with, has a patina of a new experience, right?
Right. Like, even like, it's always the most mundane things that are the most amazing to me. Like looking at a water bottle and I'm just like, it's so round and I know what's behind the water bottle. Instead of, the water bottle sitting here including what's behind it, I can actually like see around it. And that's an interesting feeling too, to see around objects, which I could, I don't know any way to explain it better than that, but it's really interesting how it changes the most mundane things. Like, yes, of course, like snow falling is amazing, or looking at a beautiful scenery or something like that. But
I could say, I'm sure speaking for everybody, we're all so happy for you that you can have that experience, really. Not only me, but everybody here. I'm sure they'd all agree. So, okay, now go on through your process. I
Okay.
kind of got, yeah, you could keep going because you're a great communicator and I am a great stopper of communication. So continue, please.
No, you're fine. You just keep directing me what direction you want to go. I was going to talk a little bit about the process because this did not happen overnight. It didn't happen like, oh, okay, I put on red and blue glasses and all of a sudden I can see a 3D anaglyph or whatever it is. And so I was in vision therapy, and for weeks and weeks I would look at their vision therapy exercises and they were all too difficult for me. I couldn't actually make anything out when I would look at them. I'd look and look, and sometimes I'd look for a really long time and I'd start to see something like, oh, maybe that's a glimmer. Maybe it's floating. Maybe it is floating towards me. Maybe it's floating away. Like, I don't really know. And it took a long time. And I learned that I could make my own exercises. And between that, my mom is also a graphic designer. And so she helped develop some exercises for me. So it was a whole process. And I can show some of the exercises that I did if that's interesting, that
It-
you that you guys can do with your glasses.
Just before we do that, just one last teeny question. You became a
me.
math teacher. Okay, you became a math teacher.
Yeah.
So you started out with big brilliant, obviously, but sixth grade reading, and then somehow with these processes now that took you all the way to a math teacher. That in and of itself is pretty interesting. I would spend a half hour on that. But how
Oh,
did
yeah,
that progress? Well, how did that progress? In other words, you went, so now once you what helped you move into to move that reading? I'm sorry, I'm not getting a good question out, but answer as you will.
I understand what you're asking. Okay, so I was always smart and worked really hard in school, but I think this is my theory. I'd be curious to hear other people's ideas on this. My brain did not develop normal vision, right? So I had to figure out a workaround. I had to figure out another way and to be kind of strategic in that way to be able to see properly. And I feel like that developed a part of my brain that does like the math, right? Solving equations, like figuring out a solution, getting an alternate way of getting to the answer. It's like my brain's good at that. And I've always loved math. I loved proofs. I went to geometry and everyone hated proofs. I loved them. They were so fun to me. It was like, ooh, let's figure out a way. And can I get a different way than everybody else? Like, I always was looking for these alternate ways. And so I started tutoring math and I loved it. So my mom actually made a rule for me because I was like making myself crazy trying to take all these AP honors English and history classes with tons of reading. And she said, you can take as many AP math and science classes as you want, but we're not doing any more AP English. It's just too much. And I agreed. And so I just kind of went the math direction. It was easier for me. I didn't have to have that perfect vision that was, lined up, it was a little bit easier for me. And it was really fun. I had that aptitude for math.
Well, that's a great theory. Brains are interesting. I only got one to experiment with, and I'm doing the best at what I got. But yeah, it's an incredible work rate. And I see what you're saying. That's a great theory, because I have some similar ideas that I would tell you, but let's keep moving on your story because it's much better than mine. Okay, so now with the next process of showing your tools and how you kind of moved along.
Okay. So one of the first things that we did when I started vision therapy is I worked with a red lens patch. So basically you put I have an amblyopic eye that's a lazy eye and then a strong eye. And so I'd put this red lens patch over my strong eye, which would so that would mean that my weak eye can see everything, but then anything that's red gets blocked out by this patch, which is pretty interesting. And so it started, I would do like mazes with a red pencil, or there's different games that you can play. My mom is a graphic designer and she made, I'll share the screen. It's pretty fun. She made these puzzles for me because, I'm a math person. I love puzzles. So there were these puzzles and that color would cancel out when I printed it off. It cancels with this red patch. So my weak eye could see the whole thing. And then I would use a black pen so that my strong eye could see the black pen. And so they're just fun little games, funny little, I think you guys would love them. They're just little puzzles and they're fun little quotes. So that's how it started, was just things with the red lens patch, things that were red and would cancel out. And that was just to wake up this other eye, get both eyes kind of working at the same time. Not necessarily like we're not doing super central work. It was very much like, can we get both eyes peripherally working together? Another super powerful exercise for me So if you, and it can spin faster, of course, nothing ever works. And it doesn't matter which side you have red on, red can be on the left or the right. But what happens is if you're wearing these glasses, one eye sees red and one eye sees blue. And if both eyes are working equally together, you get a mixture of the colors called luster. And this is something that I would put up onto my TV screen, get it as large as possible. And for me, it might be, if I'm 1 foot away, I can get that beautiful luster, that mix of the colors. Some people see a brown or an orange. Some people, like, the true luster is white. And this was a way where I didn't have much of a central target, but I was able to get both eyes to kind of be okay with working at the same time. And it was a safe zone, because a lot of times my brain would keep suppressing my weak eye. It was completely turned off, because if I turned it on, I'd get double vision. And my brain didn't want that. But this was a safe way to do it, because I'm just looking at something white, right? It's very peripheral. There's no central details. And getting that brain to mix those, because before I would just see, I would call it my images from each eye weren't in the same room. I could see something with my left eye and something with my right eye, but they weren't in the same plane. I couldn't get them to, like, really match up. The luster was the key to that. That was the very beginning of getting my brain to really allow those two images from both eyes to be in the same room and fuse together.
Now, was it important to relax during that? I mean, how you couldn't do that tense, right? You had to really be.
Oh gosh, no. Well, you can. You definitely, like, you can sit there and force it, but that's not how I want to learn how to see. So it's all about relaxing. For me, opening my peripheral up. So when I'm looking at something like that, can I see the whole outline of the whole TV? And can I picture the distance between me and the screen? All these things are helping me, like, lock in both eyes peripherally, and then it, kind of work in towards central.
How often did you do that? How often did you do that?
Exercises I was doing for 30 to 60 minutes a day for a year or two.
What time of day?
Maybe only 5 days a week.
What time of day?
But so a lot of times I would do, like, the more difficult exercises in the morning when I was fresh, and then I would save, like, VR, where it's a little bit more like, it's like spoon feeding it. I would do that in the evening. So I'd maybe do 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night, when I was really in the intensive part of my therapy. And now I do more like, 20, 30 minutes a couple times a week, just as, like, maintenance, to make sure I'm keeping that stereo alive in my brain.
Do you know when you're starting to need more of the therapy? You start.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Of course you would. That's a simple answer.
Oh yeah, I can feel it, and I don't notice it right away, like the way things look. It's the way things feel. I just feel a little bit lost in my world. I don't feel like where I am in space. It gets a little bit, I just don't know. And then I'm like, oh, I am probably suppressing right now. And so then I kind of, maybe pull out an eye exercise or just work on my peripheral, and those things kind of, like, lock it back in.
Amazing. And the brain is giving you those signals. It figured out a way
Oh yeah.
to change your behavior. So, right? Incredible. Yeah, by itself, it's kind of giving you said it beautifully. You feel off. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that's always surprising to me is that when I really feel like I am just in tune and I know, like, I'm using both eyes, I can feel the space behind me, which is so weird because you can't see that, but it's like I can feel it. Like, I know that there's stuff behind me and I'm aware of it, instead of just, like, what I'm looking at the world. Instead of that, I'm in the world. I'm, like, a part of it. I've heard people describe it, instead of looking at a snow globe, it's like you're inside the snow globe. All of a sudden you're just, like, you're a part of everything instead of looking at it.
Wow. That's a great description. Okay.
Yeah,
So
super fun.
Oh yeah. It's just, I'm very rarely at a loss for words, but you described that so wonderfully. I'm just amazed at the brain. It's incredible. Yeah.
Me too. I am like, I think that was, like, the craziest thing to me. I remember the very first time that I saw in 3D, and I knew, because there's a lot of second guessing when you're in my position. You're constantly thinking, am I making this up? Is this all a figment of my imagination, or am I really seeing it? Constant, imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it. But there was this one time, and this is before my surgery, so I had a pretty significant exotropia, and I was looking out the window and I saw this flock of birds, and it was pretty far away, but my eyes were exotropic, and so I don't know if that, like, led to it, but all of a sudden the birds, it went into 3D. And it was like, oh my gosh, the birds, it's not just like a line of birds. It was like it was like a 3D space that they were occupying. And it was just so profound and so different than anything I'd ever experienced looking at birds in the sky before. I just started to cry. And I didn't know why, it was like, it just kind of overcame me. And then immediately I went, is this what everyone sees when they look at a flock of birds? Is this what birds actually look like? And I've been in this different world, seeing this different thing my whole life. And it was kind of a lonely experience, honestly, where I thought, oh my gosh, there's no way that that's what the world looks like to everybody else besides me. And it was like both amazing and really like a little sad at the same time. Just think of what I've been missing.
You're cheering me up, Melissa. You did a good job. Yeah. I can imagine with it. Even when you edit 3D video or you're involved in it, even making, the slides and doing all that kind of stuff, there is the same, you do come to that point where, am I seeing what I'm supposed to be seeing? Like there's a moment where you're going to go, okay, is this what I'm actually, did I wear out? I'm like, am I seeing something I shouldn't be seeing, or I'm missing something? So you do kind of get that I guess it's so hard to describe it. That feeling of something's not right, or something in there is not going to work for somebody else. That's my point at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it kind of translates into your feelings that you get. It's amazing. Yeah. You haven't even done much sharing of stuff on the screen yet, and you already got me. You've got the whole audience. You nail these people for sure. Now.
You're so funny. I was going to share a couple of the exercises that I made, because I had to figure out a way to do it that I could start believing it. My logical brain is it's an uphill battle with my logical brain, because I'm like, nothing can be floating because it's on the computer screen. So there's no way anything can be coming off the computer screen or going behind it. And so to fight that logic was an uphill battle for me. And so one of the first things that I developed, and I'll share this. So on this exercise right here, you can see that I've got 6 different, are those hedgehogs? They're hedgehogs. And if you're wearing the glasses, this one you actually want to put red on the right, because in vision therapy, all the exercises are done with red on the right side. And then with 3D movies, red is on the left side. So I have to have these glasses that switch back and forth. But let me find these ones have red on the right. Okay. So when you're looking at this, you've got both monocular cues, depth cues, and binocular depth cues. So you've got the spacing. If you take the glasses off, you can see the spacing between the objects. The yellow is seen with one eye, the blue is seen with the other eye. And so we've got that disparity that's going to create the depth of floating, right? Even if they were all the same size. But I also changed the size so that it matches perspective, so that the further back objects are smaller and the closer ones are larger. That helps it be more believable to my brain, because that's a cue I've been using my whole life.
Right. Those are the depth cues. They're beautiful. Right.
Right. And so to me, like for my strabismic brain to believe the depth, I started where I was like, okay, how can I combine a monocular cue with a binocular cue? And then it just like started magically happening. And then it was like, oh, okay, I can see it now. And just my placement. So I had some fun with these types of exercises. This was a fun one that I developed because for me, it's very rigid. I want to move from one plane to the next plane and jump, right, from near to far. But that smooth movement, finding that space in between different distances was a little bit harder. So in this exercise, those pots should be floating in front of the screen, right? Yes. And then the donut, it should be level with the screen. If you've got red over the right side, red on the left, it's going to be an opposite effect. And then those lines are a diagonal line between the two. And so the exercise that I'd created for myself was to look at the pot, look where it is in space, and then follow that line to the donut and feel my eyes move diagonally through space. That was a really new concept for my brain to be able to move eyes through space, something that you can't see. You can't see space, but you can actually move your eyes through that space.
You know what that is, Melissa? That's like your brain training your brain. That's right. Because it's actually, you're figuring it out. Where did it come from? It's from that's amazing. Your brain is training your brain. That's like, yeah.
Right. This was like some of my best 3D experiences were after spending hours designing these and trying to just really fine tune how to make it so that I could see the depth the best with my given situation. And so this was like super great therapy for me, just making it. And then I'd be exhausted. You know, I couldn't do anything for a day or two. I'd be just totally done. Another way that I made exercises to really help was I would put something that I knew. I would give myself the logic. So the dark blue, I would know that is level with the computer screen. I could tell my logical brain that. And then it's like, okay, the littler one inside, not the tiny one, but the medium-sized octagon, that one, it looks like it's floating. It's like, okay, yeah, it's definitely in front of the other ones. They're not all at the same location. And then I always like to flip the glasses around. And now you get the opposite effect that that middle octagon is floating behind the screen. And so those are some things. I don't know how many more. Oh, this is another one I tried. Again, red on the right, I tried on the left side. I gave myself both binocular and monocular cues, right? I kind of tried to make a cube-ish. It's really hard to figure out how to do that in 3D when your 3D isn't perfect. But that was my goal. And then I made 3 sizes of spaceships where the largest one was the closest and then the smallest was furthest away. But then I made right next to it, there's 3 spaceships that are all supposedly the exact same size, but at different depths. And so I'd go between the two and say, okay, can I see the depth difference over on the right, even though I don't have as much for the monocular cue? And sometimes it's so much that I can't quite get it, especially right now. This is another fun one where you're looking and it just looks either like you've got a pyramid or you've got like a funnel you're looking into, depending on which side you wear the glasses on. And so this one is just super stimulating. I can look at the very center and then open up that peripheral, and you're kind of getting some peripheral fusion in there and bringing in that peripheral. That was another really important piece. This one was an attempt.
Do you
Go ahead.
do you follow those concentric lines? No, do you use that as exercise or the whole image? In other words, you go back from the, you know, like kind of
on this one, the main focus on this one for me, and just the way I use it, because I don't want to focus on things that are too central, because I've got anomalous retinal correspondence, which I don't even quite understand, but the idea is that my eyes don't use the center of the retina for both eyes. It's like my right eye is a little bit off. So if I focus too much on really small central detail, I can start getting double vision. So I really focus on like the peripheral fusion. That's a really big focus. So having a large image like this where I can really like expand, and even if I'm looking at the center, it's like my peripheral is fusing all the other things and bringing that into depth. So that's more how I use this one. I'm not like following each circle in a row. I'm just kind of like looking at it, trying to take it in at the whole time. I mentioned David Cook a little earlier. He is an optometrist, and he teaches a lot about how to see space better. And one of his things, he talks about Gestalt awareness. So Gestalt is, you know, an example he uses is if you're looking at a business card, you can look at that business card and you can see the person's name and phone number and maybe a piece of artwork and different parts of that business card. But to view it as a Gestalt would be to see it just as a business card, right? You're seeing it all as kind of one object, one thing. It's not all the individual pieces, it's all of it together. And so I think of that a lot when I'm doing these exercises. It's not individual concentric circles. It's like, what am I seeing as a whole? I'm seeing a whole pyramid. I'm seeing a whole funnel, right? I see that whole thing all at once instead of trying to like find individual pieces, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. It makes great sense. Well,
so
yeah,
once I got, once I kind of started getting that, and I started trusting and trusting myself what I was seeing, then, you know, I could start doing some of the more, I don't know, typical vision therapy exercises. Even still though, like, you know, the Brock string is really challenging for me at a distance because of that alignment of my eyes is still not perfect.
So there are books out there like this thing, which is around, you know, I don't know if we could see this. Oh yeah, because it's all right. It's Why We See What We Do. It's a great book.
Oh,
you probably.
I'm gonna write that down.
Oh no, I'll don't worry about it. I'll send you the link. I'll make sure.
Okay.
Oh, it's a great book. Oh my, this is a really great book. It's such a great book. It's hard to read because you have to think about what they're saying, and it basically, vision, right? It's the brain, the retina is attached to the brain. So all of this is brain processing, and it's fascinating. It's all on. Yeah, I owe you the book, as a matter of fact, at this point, but you've been wonderful. Yeah. So bring us up to now. Now is the exercises, and you're sharing that information with other folks, right? And how
Yeah.
do they?
So
Go ahead.
Oh, I just was so, I always try to figure out, how do I help people in my situation? How do I help other people with strabismus? What's the best way to help them? And, part of that is directing them to vision therapy, find an office. But also, I work as a vision therapist at a vision therapy office. I started working there about 6 months ago. But even before that, I found this book, The Shape of the Sky by Dr. David Cook. So this is the optometrist I was talking about. And for the first time ever, when I read his book, I was reading the words of somebody who understood strabismus. He got it. He understood.
How'd you find that? How'd you find the book?
So I had an Instagram page where I was talking a lot about my journey, and I had a vision therapist reach out to me and say, you need David Cook. You need to buy his book, and you need him. So I bought the book. I read it. It changed everything. Then I gave it to my optometrist, and he read it and did the David Cook courses, and it changed how we did the therapy. It's more about in David Cook's writings and the way he explains things. It's not about how small you can see, because I will probably never see a Randot stereopsis, stereogram. I hope to. I'm going to keep working towards that. But because of, the way my retina works, I probably won't get to that point. But what he talks about is that's not what the most important thing is. How big can you see? How much can you see at the same time? What is he calls it his ZOZA. What's the zone of simultaneous awareness? How much can you take in at once? And the clouds in the sky, can you see the absence of objects and see that space between? So fascinating. And so I made a course called Mastering Peripheral that centers around some of David Cook's theories, but basically this is what you need to know, because in vision therapy, you constantly are told, open your peripheral. They're always telling you that when you're doing an eye exercise, you're doing the Brock string, you're looking at a 3D movie, open your peripheral, open your peripheral. And I always was like, I can see to both sides. My peripheral's open. And I never understood that it's so much more than that. It's everything that you're not looking at, right? Everything that your central vision's not pointed at. And so I developed a course to try to help other people in vision therapy. Like, this is how you use your peripheral. This is what that means. And here's some like actual techniques to do it. So that's been something that I love, is helping people in vision therapy who aren't making that progress. Like, okay, here's some tips. Here's some exercises that are a good stepping stone. You can't do the ones in vision therapy yet. Here's some things to help you get there.
What came to mind is even as a photographer or a cinematographer, seeing that way is
oh yeah
good. We're on the same, because that's what I said. Wow, taking a course like that forces you to look at the big picture. It means you can record the big picture properly. That's amazing.
I put it in the chat if anyone's interested in looking at it. But yeah, that's been the biggest thing for me, and mentally, like, and physically, right? Being okay, like, I can see big, I can drive, I can play tennis, like these things that are like my big stereo. I call it big stereo, and it works fantastically. And yeah, my tiny stereo, my Randot stereo, that's no good, but my big stereo is great. And so that's what's actually been impactful in my daily life. Like, yeah, I want to see a Randot just for fun, right? You guys get that. It's fun. I want to do that, but it's not like gonna change my life like functionally. And in some ways it would, and it will. I'm gonna be positive. It will when that happens. But
if you said it,
there's a lot more.
My dear, I believe it, because yeah. That is fascinating, because it really is. It's all about the brain. It's really all about what's important to it. And so every step you take, you're being pushed by the brain itself, because it is important to it. It's fascinating. It's like a synergy with yourself.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. And it's fascinating that once your brain starts to see that way, it's like, oh, I want more of that. You kind of get hungry for it.
Yeah, and
I want more.
there's got to be an evolutionary reason for that. Obviously, it's driving towards that, regardless of what you want.
Absolutely. My brain's trying to keep me alive.
Yeah, it's as far as it's concerned, this is more important than anything else. Okay, we go figure it out. There was David Rose. I forget, he used to have a PBS show on, and he was interviewing. He did a whole series on health, and all these different doctors came in and about life and all that stuff. And he was talking to a neurosurgeon or something, and another doctor. As he was interviewing her, she says, "Well, she's at a party, and talking to a guy, a brain surgeon, something. Well, the brain is the most important part of the body." And she said, "Well, I thought about it in a minute and realized what was telling me that." Because you have been great. I want to give people a chance to think of other questions, because you were great. Yes. Oh, we got.
I don't know what that is.
Oh,
tell me more. Okay.
I'm going to do you a big favor, Melissa. No, I'm going to do a big favor, Melissa. I'm not going to give you his. No, I'm only kidding. I'll take care of that, Fred. I'll. She would be I'm sure she'd be very interested.
Okay, cool. Yep, and yeah. Yeah, you can email me, melissa@strabismussolutions.com. I put it in the chat, but then it auto-corrected for me. Oh no, it didn't. I put in my email, but it didn't have an M at the end. There is an M at the end. It's .com.
And if you did get, if you arrived here through the email we send out, her name is a hot link. You could just click on that and you'll get to her website, Melissa's website. Normally we do a break here, but you know what, fellas? I think we should. I'm gonna hand this over to you, Joe, rather than waste a minute, because she's just too valuable and too much fun. So we're just gonna go over right now. Hold on a second while I put my.
Ooh, someone just asked where to get the Shape of the Sky book. You have to get it from OEPF. Let me find the link. It's kind of more of a textbook. You can't buy it on Amazon. And let me find it really quick. OEPF, I believe, it's an optometry organization, and they have it on their website. So I'll find it and put it in there.
Well, if you can hear the sound of my voice, you're in the fabulous after party. We would ask that you remain muted unless you have something wonderful to say. And the first thing that I would like to say, I'd like to thank Melissa Daniels for one of the best interviews that we have ever run on our program. Delightful, entertaining, visually stimulating. Melissa, deep appreciation and thank you from I'm sure from all of here, all the crew here, and I'm sure also from all of our audience. Now, we had our English correspondent, Paul Hutchins, who I believe is an optician. He had to leave for take care of some family business. He left in the chat a couple of questions. They're on the technical side, and he said if they're not something you want to address, he completely understands that. I don't know if I even understand the questions, but I can read.
Okay.
Can I read the first one?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see.
Okay. I am delighted that Melissa has regained some stereopsis, but I wonder if there remains a refractive component to her residual strabismus, and if she wears spectacles or contact lenses.
Oh, nope. I do not wear any glasses. I have 20/20 vision in my left eye and 20/25 in my right eye. So I don't wear any glasses. I do have some therapeutic lenses that have prism that I can wear if I like get really tired, or every now and then I'll start getting double vision in the distance, and I have some that can help with that, or help with like other symptoms. So I don't generally wear glasses or contacts at all.
Okay. So
Mine was
second,
not. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
there are three. This is I should
Okay.
have sorry, I should have indicated that. There are three. B, were prism spectacles used first before her ophthalmologist performed corrective surgery to see if this helped?
Yes. So I actually have, do you guys want to see them? Just
Sure.
a second. I have my little tiny, my mom saved my glasses from the time I was little. So I've got these little, you can see those tiny little glasses. So these were when I was 6 months old. I had these glasses that wrapped around the ear because I tried to yank them off. And so, yeah, they had prism. They helped. I believe there was like a plus lens, different things to try to relax my eyes out, try to help encourage me to do that. So they did try that, and it just didn't make any effect whatsoever. And so then they did the surgery, more glasses with prism, and different prescriptions. The prescriptions changed quite a bit over time. So they did all sorts of things, but I ended up having surgeries at 6 months, 9 months, and 7 years when I was younger.
Wow. Final question. C, when recommending vision therapy to people, how are they selected so as to avoid intractable
Diplopia.
double vision if someone has
Uh-huh.
long-standing suppression and abnormal retinal correspondence?
Yeah. Okay. So that's
That was a
me.
mouthful. Was that clear?
Yeah. Do you want me to interpret?
Maybe
So-
you can explain the question first.
Okay, I'll explain the question and the answer. So the question, he's saying that, and this is a huge concern, very valid concern, and why a lot of ophthalmologists don't recommend vision therapy. For my whole life, one of my mechanisms to overcome my issue with my brain not using my eyes is I only use my left eye, and my right eye was totally shut off. So if you just turn that eye back on, it doesn't mean the brain can fuse, right? A lot of times people will do eye exercises and they turn that other eye on, and then they just get this diplopia or double vision, and they can't get rid of it. And so that is terrible. Having diplopia or double vision is way worse than only using one eye. It's horrible, right? And
Yeah,
so
okay.
it is something that's very concerning. And the old way of doing vision therapy, where you would just patch one eye, they'd say make both eyes strong and then get them to work together, that is going to cause more of that irretractable diplopia that he's talking about. The way that my optometrist did it, and like this is the whole David Cook, this is the whole philosophy that he has, you start peripherally, because on some level your eyes are working together peripherally. Even if you have the central vision shut off and you've got one eye doing this, one eye doing this, I still, even when I wasn't using both eyes all the time, I could still like see out to the sides, right? My brain is still combining peripherally. And so then you just slowly work in towards the middle. And that is the newer way of doing vision therapy. And not all vision therapy offices do it that way. And so it can be a little bit scary there to trust. And so I find people, if they're a David Cook fan, or Bob Sanet is another really big name in the vision therapy world. This is how he's trying to get everybody to switch over to this way of treating strabismus.
And just to clarify, when you talk about suppressing the eye, you're talking about your brain just ignoring its input. In other words, you're not necessarily putting a patch over the eye.
Oh,
your brain
right.
is used to only paying attention to the strong eye. In the brain, it's your brain. And I just want to make sure I understood, even though that eye still technically is there, your brain has learned, I'm only going to pay attention to this eye because this is the dependable one.
Exactly. And it's a lot like, right, having double vision, it's like if both eyes were on when I was a baby and my eyes were doing this, I would have had horrible double vision, because in order to get that single vision, your eyes have to be lined up, and my eyes weren't. And so that was my brain shutting it down. Now, really, it's shutting down the central vision, right? You've got your central and your peripheral vision. With suppression, many times you're just shutting down or ignoring the central vision, not everything. And so it varies on how much is shut down. And so that's why it's like, start where the eyes work together peripherally, and then you work towards where they're not working together. And for me, because I've got this arc, the anomalous retinal correspondence that Dr. Hutchins mentioned, like I've got those things. I don't even do Brock string. I don't do things with like tiny central details, because that is going to create more problems for me
So what's your
than
favorite
solutions.
in terms of using stereo vision? Do you like looking at stereo cards? Will you enjoy looking at a ViewMaster? I'm just kind of curious. Or if you go to a 3D movie with the polarized glasses, is that fun to watch for you? I'm just curious what of those things might work better than the other, or if any of them work at all for you.
Right. So I don't love like stereo pairs. Those ones are really hard for me to get. So and they're just, I'm getting there and I work on them, and it's getting
And
better
they're
and better.
hard for a lot of
definitely
people,
try.
to be fair. I mean, they're hard, almost anyone, the first time they hold up a Holmes viewer is a little confused by it. So that's kind of what I was wondering about, if that was even worse.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely those ones are really difficult. My favorite, I actually have a 3D TV. I can see I'm among friends. I ordered the one that you guys were talking about already while we were on this call, the China wall. So I have a 3D TV, a huge collection of 3D movies, a Blu-ray player. And so that's probably my favorite. One of my very favorite ones. I love the IMAX movies because the 3D is so good. One's called Under the Sea in 3D. And that was like, oh man, there's this part where this huge bass comes out of the screen, and it was so real. I could pet the fish, and it was just like solid, and like that was just so cool for me. So I love 3D movies. I love virtual reality. So for me, it's the virtual things. Those are so much easier for my brain to see that 3D and really appreciate it. And a lot of times if I go to the movie theater and I watch a 3D movie, I'll come out and my real life 3D is just so much better. It's just like, I think of it as a range, like 0 to 10. I was at a 0 before I started. Now I'm consistently like a 5 or a 6 as far as like my stereo goes. But sometimes I have those experiences where it's at a 10. It's really awesome.
Have you had a chance to play with the LoomPad 2? Are you familiar with that device? It's
No, what is it?
Oh, it's definitely something you'll want to. Well, maybe one of us can give you one to play with. It's a tablet that uses a new technology. Someone else on here might be able to describe it better. It's 3D without glasses, and it uses their own proprietary diffraction system to beam the correct image to each of your two eyes. It has 6, if I'm correct, it has 6 different image planes. What it means is that you can see 3D without glasses, and you can move the tablet around, and it seems quite natural. And some of us have wondered if this would be something useful for vision therapy, because you don't have to be putting on this Oculus headset. You don't have to be going through all this hardware. You actually have a thing you can hold up, and it has pretty good cancellation. Although that's one thing about a VR headset, is it gives you perfect cancellation, which is probably very important for the sort of thing you're doing. You can't have a little leakage. And even this device will have, it's something you'd find interesting. We'll have to see if we can get you one to look at.
That'd be amazing. I have tried a HoloLens. We have a HoloLens at my vision therapy office. Are you guys familiar with Microsoft HoloLens?
And that's very similar to the Quest in terms of its functionality. Your point, isn't it? I mean, you can see the world through it, right? But
right. Yeah. So it reminds me a little bit of like the VR walkthrough, but it's just way higher quality. And so my office has like a vision therapy program on the HoloLens, and that one, oh, it is so cool. Like it's so real. Sometimes I don't have to wonder if I'm seeing it or not. Like I know it's real. I know I'm seeing the 3D.
Sure.
So it's really fun.
You tried the Quest 3, which is sort of a cruder version of that idea, whereas the Quest 3 lets you see your surroundings in color through camera, so not perfectly, but it can layer 3D objects, virtual objects, over your real environment. might be an interesting, and yeah, and actually someone reminded me that, yeah, the LoonPad does have some ghosting, so it's questionable. I would actually be curious to get your opinion looking at one. Is this too much crosstalk to be usable for the sort of thing you're doing? But yeah, the
I
Quest 3 is
would love to try
quite an
something like that.
interesting device. Although the HoloLens, I haven't had a chance to play with it, but I could see where that could be very valuable for vision therapy, because you can see your environment and you can see things imposed on it, right? And you're seeing your actual environment through glass.
Right. And it's just like it's in the real space. Like it's just like a little glasses, and it's just, I think of it like Iron Man, when Iron Man is like having his computer on his hand and it's like everywhere in the room and he's manipulating it. That's kind of what it feels like to me. I feel like I'm Iron Man, and it's it's really fun. It's very real. I mean, I don't have a Quest 3, I have a Quest 2, and there's an app called Trip. Are you guys familiar with that app? Trip? It's very psychedelic. But there's parts of it that feel like you're inside of a kaleidoscope, and it's really cool. But they have this Sanctorium, I can't remember what it's called, but it's a pass-through part of the game where you can actually put things into the real environment. So there's a jellyfish, and you can have a jellyfish swimming through your living room, or you're doing, anyways, I love it. It's like my very favorite, one of my very favorite apps to interact with in VR, just because it's like in the real world, but like there's also some like 3D targets to look at, so it's really fun.
Wow. Well, now, are there dedicated vision therapy apps that have been written for the HoloLens?
Yes, I thought you were gonna say VR. Yeah, so there's a company called Home Therapy Solutions, HTS, and they have a lot of different vision therapy programs. So they have like VTS4 is a program for 3D TVs. They also have the HoloLens. They have the Sanit Vision Integrator. That's not 3D, but it's like a touchscreen TV, different eye exercises for all sorts of things. So they have a program developed. So I was like, I'm going to get it. It was like 15 grand. So I was like, oh, it's a little out of the budget. I'll just stick with my Oculus 2 and call it good.
Well, I see on your website you mentioned Vivid Vision. I've watched some of their YouTube videos. Those are by prescription? Am I correct? Like their stuff, you have to actually get a prescription to get their app for the Quest.
There's 3 apps, main apps on the Quest that you can use for vision therapy. 2 of them are prescription based. One of them is not. So you've got Optics Trainer and Vivid Vision that are ones you would get through an optometrist in vision therapy, but Vivid Vision is tricky because they're going through like an FDA approval process. So you can't actually get it in the United States right now unless you're in office.
Really?
But that's
no.
a pretty, go ahead.
Oh, I just didn't realize, because I had seen their stuff a couple years ago. I didn't realize that they still weren't approved. You can get them through prescription, but you can't get them directly. Is that what it is?
You could never get them directly, but even through prescription, they still it can't be used outside of an office setting. So if you go to vision therapy
in the office to use it. Okay.
But like when I did Vivid Vision, I did it. I had a home prescription version that I got through my optometrist still, but I was able to do it at home on my own Oculus and use it there. It's a great program.
It's sort of odd because honestly, it's not that hard for anyone with Unity and a little bit of. It's not that hard to design that functionality into. In other words, this isn't. It's not like it's some secret sauce that only a mad scientist could come up with. It's fairly easy to have something in Unity that shows one thing in one eye and one thing in the other. So I was kind of funny to hear going through all that. It's just not that.
I know.
Not that hard.
It's because it's medical, right? There's actually a guy, Mark. Mark is the greatest. Mark is from Australia. He has strabismus, and he is a software developer. And he developed Equal Eyes, which is a vision therapy program on VR. And because he couldn't find a vision therapy office, so he developed a whole program to help fix his strabismus. And it's so fun. You don't have to have a prescription, of course, to get that one. You just have to go into developer mode, and he's got some really fun things in his program that I think a lot of people on here would be interested in. It's fun. It's called Equal Eyes. I'll find a link and put it in. You already have it.
Yeah,
Jay already put it in there.
We had a question. We're trying to watch the chat. Oh, does someone else have a question? I'm sorry, I've been hogging.
Yeah.
I will turn it over to the floor.
Thank you. I enjoyed your presentation. I had detached retina in my right eye when I was 7 years old, which left that eye a little bit wandering, but the muscles were able to pull it back. When I'm relaxed, however, this has been like that's almost 70 years. I see double vision all the time. I just ignore what's coming in the weak eye. But when I want to, the eyes pull together and I see in 3D. So I've never missed seeing in 3D, but probably the majority of the time I'm wandering around the world, I'm seeing in double vision, just ignoring what's in my weaker eye. I also close it when I want to ignore it, which drives passengers crazy because it's the eye that they see closed. But when I'm wandering around the world and things like even in the house, if I relax, I see in 3D and I can easily pull it together. But it doesn't feel different than when I'm trying to see. If I'm trying to see something in stereo 3D, like the 3D movies or the things like that, I'm very aware when my eyes snap together. Oh, now I see in depth. Now I have stereopsis. If I relax the eye, it doesn't. When I'm at home and wandering around, I don't get that feeling when the eyes come together that I'm seeing in 3D. I'm just now not seeing double. But I think based on some of the stuff that you're saying, I might want to try to be aware of that feeling when the eyes come together in day-to-day activities. It now feels different. Instead, it was just, oh, I don't have double vision. But it's a very interesting thing to try to become aware of seeing things different. And I might give that a try.
That's amazing. Awesome that you have such great control. You're very lucky. I talked to lots of people who've had the retinal tears and they don't have that control, and it's, they have that constant double. So it's pretty amazing that you have the control. But yeah, learning how to like kind of be aware of like the space around you, even like the optic flow when you're walking in a room and noticing the optic flow of things moving past you, those things just are going to like lock in that single vision, make it a lot easier, and you'll just be more aware of the differences between the two.
The double vision is also not side to side, but a little like that. They're
Okay.
not quite aligned, which
Yep.
makes, because it's slightly wall-eyed, it's very easy for me to free view stereo pairs, but because they're not quite aligned, I have to hold the stereo pair at an angle and now it locks in. Same thing with the stereo, stereograms and random dot stereos. I can do them real well if I hold it at just a little bit of an angle so that my eyes can, but.
Do you ever
Hey,
tilt your head to try to get it to line up? Because I've got a vertical eye
Oh.
stuff going on too. And sometimes the head tilt, I'll move my head until I can get those things to line up.
Yeah, well,
That's
But,
a good one. A lot of people with that vertical, it's really hard to because we all know the vergence, the brain is designed to be able to converge and diverge the eyes, but not up and down. That's not part of like the way the muscles are supposed to work. So a lot of people will get a prism in their glasses that's either, base up or base down to help with a vertical. And then that really creates a lot of relief as well.
But I do think it's
So,
hard for people to understand that the level of double vision that I have, which is, like I say, 80% of the time, unless I make it go away, my brain just ignores what's coming out of the weaker eye, unless it's at night and things driving, and that, I mean, you can't ignore which headlight is which, but for most of the time, I don't walk into walls.
right. That's people don't get it. That is a very true statement. So many people, I saw a question in the chat, what percentage of the population, and I think it's like 3% of the population has some form of strabismus, and but it's you wouldn't think it's that common. You don't see it all the time. You don't see people's eyes turning, and it's not super common, but there's a lot that can happen even if your eyes look straight. They can be off just a little bit, and that creates double vision and just a lot of difficulties in just getting around in the world.
I've been very self-conscious of looking people straight eye to eye, because if I relax and the one eye wanders, they see one eye move and not the other, and it kind of freaks them out.
Oh yeah. Do they look behind them and say like, "Oh, are you looking at me? Or are you looking at?" That's what they
Yeah.
always would do to me. They'd be
Yeah.
so confused and like, "Where are you looking?" And I don't know. It
Now,
I
is
enjoyed your talk.
Are you able to drive at night now? You'd mentioned that had been an issue. Has this all these processes helped you to be able to feel comfortable night driving?
Absolutely. That has been my number one like favorite thing is I can drive and even if it's raining or snowing. Before if it was raining, it felt like I was looking at a wall of water. And now I can kind of look through the rain, right? Like I can look around the raindrops and see down the road, where before it was just like I couldn't see anything. I just was
Which is
looking at
kind
the
of an
rain
interesting
and
example of the value of depth perception is, yeah, that the rain, you are able to see that the rain is in a different location than the headlights, as opposed to
yep,
not perceiving. Have you had a
absolutely.
chance to
So yeah,
try
that was go ahead.
I was just curious if you've had a chance to try the Apple Vision Pro, very similar to the Quest, but just at a higher resolution. Same thing where it's giving you a
I want
three-dimensional
it.
view of the world.
Oh, I really want it. I want to try it, but no, I haven't. I'm
Go to an
going to
Apple
vision
store will
therapy.
give you a free demo. It's worth the time if you can spare an hour. It really they give great demos of it for free. I recommend that to everyone, even if you have no intention of buying one of the things. Take half an hour and have them give you the demo. It's just fascinating to see what they're doing, how high res it is, and all that.
I posted a link in the chat with a guy who has strabismus who's tried it out. Let's see if I still got it. I'll post it again.
The Apple Vision Pro. Oh, that looks interesting.
Yeah, and I would expect at some point these sorts of apps that exist on the Quest would be able to be ported to that. It's still early days for that, but eventually I think all those sorts of things will be able to be done at higher resolution on that device. It's not cheap though, of course.
Well, Melissa, I'd like to again thank you for the wealth and the depth of your knowledge. I think we've got little strobing a little echo there, and I think one of the takeaways from me is a reminder. I mean, we are a community of 3D fans, and even we who are maybe the specialists in this area, maybe we forget about how incredible depth perception is. And you mentioned something that I guess for most of us is very common. Most of us live near where there are trees, and trees. I'm fortunate to live in a seasonal climate. Trees change throughout the year. Sometimes the most striking trees are in the wintertime. There's no leaves, but they're covered in ice, and they're and they form these intricate patterns. And you so thank you for reminding us all how special 3D depth perception is, and you also made the difficulty of it very real to me in your last example, driving in rain, and the rain is just a wall of water that you don't see through. I can't imagine doing that. That would terrify me. And maybe the last thing I'd just like to say is congratulations on how far you've come. And I'm a graphic designer too, so kudos to your mom. Yay, mom.
That's right,
graphic
man.
designer. She helped you.
You beat me to
Well,
the
that's
punch.
what I love.
Yeah, no.
She, you know what? She felt a lot of guilt when I discovered vision therapy, and she thought, "Why didn't I find this when you were little?" And Mom, it didn't exist. But now she's the one who's designed all my fun glasses. I've got these anaglyph glasses I've got cheetah ones, and I've got princess. So she makes it so funny. She helps me make eye exercises. So she's always along for the party, which is so fun.
We're coming to the end, but I gotta say, you watch the news, you watch everything in daily life. There's so much bad news. I want to thank you for such a good story. That alone is worth the price of entry. But it's just a great story. When you were mentioning how many people don't see 3D, I would take these little gizmos around every so often when I didn't have digital, just to show people what it looks like in terms of what I'm shooting to get an idea. you know, popular wisdom was 10% of people don't see 3D because of some slight problem in the vision, but they've accommodated, as we said before, you know, they've accommodated. But when they have to put their eyes in this thing, you get, oh, I can know right away because they don't go, wow. And that would be the thing. As soon as I hand it to them, okay, what are you seeing? Because if they don't say wow, am I supposed to see two? So it's a lot more people than you would imagine. And you know what Jay was talking about in terms of having to deal with double vision. I know that sounds terrible to people, right? That's like horrifying, right? But I have like the worst tinnitus. Remember Bob Heil? Remember we began with Bob Heil with the sound system. No, I have like tinnitus that would put most people probably on the floor in a fetal position. It's always loud. I'm never in a quiet room. If I'm, you know, if it's quiet, I'm hearing this thing 10 times. But like with the double vision, Jay was saying, the brain, the miracle of the brain is it's just a little, like right now it's blaring, but I'm not paying attention to it. The brain just, and here's the upside. Here's the upside of the tinnitus. If there's another life, when I go, I'll know I'm there. Because if this ring stops, I made it. So there's always an upside, man. You know, you always look for the upside. But you have been just, as Joseph said, man, you were phenomenal on so many levels, and you're invited back anytime. We got to figure out a way to keep you around because you're great. You're a great communicator, and you got a wonderful story. And you have a wonderful story. Are we out of questions? How are we doing?
I think we covered everything in the chat, and we're coming to our traditional close time.
Perfect. And well, I will say some questions came up. If this was recorded, yes, it has been recorded. From rocking back and forth. Make you seasick. How's that? And you know, you get this message now. I gotta do this at the beginning. Johnny Christopher, you're still there. You know, when you see that thing that say, basically what's happening is when this is a new thing. When we go to YouTube, I guess there must be some privacy stuff that's going on because it never happened before, but now it's telling you, and that's all it is. Other than the fact we actually have access to your bank account at this point, but don't let that bother you. Not bothering us, no. That's all that was. That's all that stuff is. It's and
no
anyway,
one who's into 3D has anything in their bank account anyway. So
that's what I was going to say. It was kind of a disappointment, John, but nonetheless, after all that effort, thank you very much, Melissa. Okay, well, another show has come to an end, and a big thanks to this week's guest, Melissa Daniels, and to our amazing crew for making this all possible. Stereo Doro, who's in Puerto Rico doing work, building houses, because just the kind of people we are. Very sharing bunch. Look at what Melissa did and shares it with people. Boy, excellent bunch of people. Jay Kuznets, of course, who got us hardworking people. Jim Harp. Actually, I don't want to embarrass Jay Kuznets, but he's now working with his parents, helping him. Sharing people. Jim Harp, Joe Pedotto, Paul Hutchins, and, of course, you for stopping by to see what you've been missing in 3D. See you next week. Until then, don't be stingy with your camera. Share your joy. Count your blessings.
New York, so good they named it twice. New York, all the scandal and the vice. I love it, New